Rajdeesh?
Yes, sir. Would you start, sir, or shall I
No,
start, sir?
please start.
Okay. So
Then
good
I'll
morning.
pick it.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure that we are holding this webinar for all the users. So here, we are doing a uh, very important and a prestigious government program for Ministry of Corporate Affairs. And in this program, we are looking at launching of different functionalities in various in staggered phases. So right now in this seminar or webinar, we will focus mainly on the new company forms that will be launched in the during the month. And these forms, what are the functionalities that will be offered through these forms will be explained to you by my colleague Vijaya, who is on the call. I will also be assisted by Rohit Bhatt and Richa Gupta, who will be part of this session from LTI side. So it is indeed a privilege or I feel very, very happy and proud to be a part of this session where industry professionals and the regulator, MCA, are all coming together in our endeavor to make this system uh, much more robust and much more easier for use for people who would be using the MCS system. So I start my presentation. I will quickly run you through some of the old stuff that we have already been covering, and this cover entails uh, users who are required to be using this system. They would be required to convert themselves into business users if they are already registered on the system, or if they are registering themselves fresh, they have to register themselves as business users. Because unlike the previous version of the system, all filings in MCA 21 V3 system will be more or less done by business users. So business users, the reason why these business users are formed is that we want to positively have a confirmation and a verification of all the users who will be filing onto the system. So I'll just open up my presentation now and quickly run you through some slides, and then mainly we will focus on the new forms which are getting launched in this month. The LLP module, I'm sure that most of the users are already using. And if there are certain specific questions related to the functionalities of LLP module also, we will take that towards the end of the session. JS sir, if you want to intervene and talk about something. Yeah.
Before, good morning, all professional friends who have joined us at 10 today. I am Manoj Pandey, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and I welcome all participants in this webinar. I'll make very short intervention because everybody would be interested in having a presentation on the 9 forms and the functionalities of these forms. What are the changes which we are bringing from version 2 to version 3, and also the necessity of being a business user. While welcoming everybody, I have only 2 things to say here. One, that it's a transformation which takes place from one version to another version. So we started with version 1, thereafter version 2, and now we are saying it version 3. Version 1 being handled by one service provider, version 2 by another, and version 3 is being managed by another service provider, that is the third one. Every version would have some new features, new platform, new peculiarities in terms of the validations, the functionalities of the forms, and the portal itself. You must have by now come to know that all these are web-based forms. So version 3 would be having web-based forms. And web-based forms would mean it has a live interaction with internet connection. Validation you can see on the, in fact, on your screen only. Form the pre-fill would be happening on the screen so you can see. At the same time, you can download and later on a PDF form you can see and it can be uploaded. We have provided this facility because of ease which should happen with all the stakeholders' filings. But a transformational project like this will also be having a huge database. We have more than 20 lakh registered companies and around 40 lakh total directors base, and every year more than about say 90 lakh, 80 lakh forms are getting filed on an average. And this is happening since last say uh, since 2006 when we started MCA 21. So depending upon the company's registration and thereafter ALP registration, number would vary. But it's a huge data which we are carrying along with us because it's a corporate registry. In version 2, since there were not many validations, and in version 3, there would be additional validations, that change would, I request the technical and domain team present here should be explained to all users. Second, why we require business users? Because the users should be identified. Who are using this system, who are filling up this form, and it's for benefit of all. Registered users can only file limited forms, which you by now, which you would be knowing. But majority of the forms would get filed by business users only. So I will request my professional friends to not only enroll yourself as a business user, but also request the directors and the designated partners also to become a business user. Since you are filling up the forms on their behalf, so they would be quite, you would be aware and you can easily approach them, contact them, and emphasize upon the necessity of being a business user on V3 platform. Although we have also sent them the mails and the requests, and repeated requests have happened. Before launching these 9 forms initially, so this time we have taken a staggered approach, as Rajneesh just said. LLP module was launched, before that website was launched, and there were some intermediate launches which had happened, like ebook, e-consultation. These were new features of version 3. Now we have come to a stage of launch of company forms. To begin with, 9 forms would be released, and after that, rest of the forms would get released along with other modules. Kindly assist us because you are also the partner in the whole process. You are also equal partner because after all, it's for you. The government builds a platform to help the professionals and corporates to do the corporate filings. And I'm thankful to Company Secretary Institute and Chartered Accountant Institute and also Cost Accounts Institute who have participated in these user acceptance tests of these 9 forms. They are in constant touch with us and we are holding weekly meetings with them to find out what could be the areas of concern and also to address them. The partnership can easily be seen with the first webinar being launched for company modules by ICAI, second on Friday by ICSI, and today we decided that ministry should hold so that there is a continuous say, uh, process of reaching out to stakeholders. Ministry is cognizant of the fact that any launch of even a single form should be clearly communicated to stakeholders, and that is why we have taken this approach. I am told that the professional institutes have also placed these videos on their social media handles or YouTube channels. Please go through them and sensitize yourself. From 15th onwards, we will be closing filing of these only 9 forms. LLP module is open, company module is open, but for these 9 forms. So filing would happen continuously. Again, uh, many thanks for joining on Saturday at 10 a.m. and kindly spread the message among all professional friends and all directors that this is the approach which ministry has taken. You are equal partner in successful implementation of this version. Thanks a lot, and over to Rajneesh.
Yeah. So thank you, sir. Thank you for detailing this out. Uh, and just to add on to what Joint Secretary sir mentioned, I think no project of this scale and magnitude where we are going on a very ambitious journey of replacing the complete technology, doing a lot of transformation in terms of the usage of the system, and also in terms of making form filing lot easier now. These web forms, these are lightweight forms. They continuously give a capability to the user to see the information on the screen. So this journey will, over a period of time, only enrich the experience that the users will carry from this system. We are also going to add on a lot of new functionalities, and we have already added, we are using artificial intelligence and machine language for name searches, etc., to avoid any name clashes, etc. So all those functionalities are already there, which are being used in the system to enhance the experience of the users. So without further ado, I will start with my presentation and quickly walk you through. This is more of a rehash of the sessions that we have been doing in the past. So I'll just walk you through a one sample business user profile, which is for the professionals. What are the screens one would require to see, or what are the screens one would see when they are converting themselves from one user category to another? And what is very important here in this V3 system is that every user has to, log into the system, register onto the system, so that the usage of the system can be established. Meaning, uh, if let's say there is a director or a designated partner or there is a company user, etc., all those users have to register on the system and also posit and also attach or put their digital signatures, associate their digital signatures on the system so that the form filing can happen. So I'll just start now with my presentation. Just let me know, Rohit, is my screen visible?
Yes, Rajneesh, it is visible. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so this presentation is briefly, encapsulated into two parts. So we will rehash and just give a brief overview on the login and registration module. By now, most of the professional friends who are on this call are familiar with this, so I'll not spend too much time on this, except for the fact, I will keep reiterating that every user who is going to transact on the system and do any business on the system should ideally convert themselves into a business user. And secondly, we seek support of the professionals on this session to ask their, the companies that they are working for, or the LLPs, that all their directors or designated partners also come and register themselves as business users and also associate their DSCs, so that when they are actually required to file on the system, the filing will become a lot easier. So, I'll just focus and spend some time on different user roles in MCA 21 V3. I'll not elaborate too much on this. We'll talk through the professional registration, and we will cover one of the categories of users, which is a professional category. Profile update. I'll not dwell too much on this. Basically, it's uh, a functionality where somebody who was already registered and transacting on a V2 system, their credentials and their user profile has been migrated onto the V3 system. All that they are required to do is now come and convert themselves into a business user, and least not the last, which is last not the least, which is the DSC association. Company module 31st August is a formal go live schedule for these 9 forms, and why these 9 forms have been selected, what is the purpose of these 9 forms. This will be explained at length by my colleague Vijaya, who happens to be our functional leader on this call, and she will be assisted by both Rohit and Richa on this call. So, various types of users in V3, there are two categories of users. One is the registered user category and other is a business user category. Under business users, there are different type of user roles. However, we will restrict our... Sorry? Okay, so we will restrict our discussion, and I will run you through what is a professional user and how a professional user is required to be created on a system. And then there are other categories like officer in default, nodal IPF. All these slides will be made available to the professionals on this call, so that these can be circulated, so that they are familiar with what are the various user roles and why these user roles are been created in the system. One of the important roles which I would want and urge the professionals to start using is the professional staff member role. One of the core requirements which kept on coming to us was that there are professionals who have their associates or their employees who transact on the system. However, in the current new scheme of things, only one user can be associated as a professional. So in order to expand the reach, we have added a new professional staff member category. And right now, a professional staff member, whenever that role is created on the system, it gets duly authorized by a professional. Now, there is a question which keeps coming to us from various professionals that, while a professional staff member role has been created, can we see what are the filings, etc., done by them? So this functionality will also be added on subsequently. Right now, this functionality is not there, but we plan to add that functionality very soon. Whereas a professional which is a main role in the system will be able to see all the filings done by the professional staff members who are associated through that role in the system. So when you log into the system, you see a home screen like this, and on the top right hand corner there is a sign in, sign up icon which appears. So when you press that, this screen comes on the system, and this screen has two bifurcations. One is there is a bifurcation for a registration of a new user. But if a user is already created, then the user can simply fill in their details and log into the system, and login for company filing continues to happen on the old system. Now, with the new set of 9 forms which are getting launched very soon, so there will be another bifurcation where 9 forms can be accessed through the V3 screens, and the remaining other company forms will continue to remain as part of login through company filing on the V2 system itself. So this is the registration details and screen of a user who is trying to register themselves as a professional on the system. So when a professional, so here there are bifurcations. There is a registered user category. There is a business user category. Then, one is required to select a role. So there are multiple drop downs which will appear over here when you select yourself as a business user. Now, in this case, because we are talking of a professional user, you select a professional. Now, what is important here is that the PAN for a professional user is mandatory.
Sir, 1 second. The team here on their teams, if you have any questions, please write it on the chat. We'll answer you. Request is to put your question on the chat only.
Yeah. Keep putting your questions on the chat. We will address those queries at the end of the session. So PAN is mandatory over here. So you put your PAN number. And what has to be remembered here is that when you are putting mandatory field where if you belong to a professional institute, you are either required to give your membership number or your professional membership number becomes mandatory. So we capture the membership number of a professional and from which institute they belong to, that is also captured in the system when somebody is trying to register themselves as a professional user in the MCA 21V3 system. I believe there was a similar category in V2 system. However, since there was no restriction in terms of filing and where every registered user could also file in the V2 system, nobody was using this category. But here, unlike in V2 system, in V3, a professional is required to do only filing through a professional user in the business user category. Here, you put in your address details, etc. And you put in your mobile number. Mobile number becomes very important because all the OTPs, the one-time password will flow onto the mobile number of the user who is registering on the system. So these are the ones where stars are marked. These are mandatory fields. Now, when you put in PIN code number, automatically the city and your locality will drop down from the list which is available. So we have done reconciliation of PIN codes to the areas and the city mapping through the postal codes, etc. So you type your PIN code, and when you type your PIN code over here, so PIN code is the one where you need to provide the details first, and then then automatically city drop downs and area and locality drop downs will appear on the screens. Here you type in your password and confirm your password. Now it is very important that you remember passwords, and there are password policies defined. So wherein a minimum of 6 characters and maximum of 15 characters are allowed. And one special character has to be chosen, and one of the alphabets which you are going to use has to be capital letter in mandatory. So this is how the password policy is defined in the system to make it very complex so that no misuse can happen where somebody can guess your passwords, etc. And what is important here to remember is that there is a password recovery option available. So in case somebody forgets passwords, which we usually do because we transact on many systems, so there is a hint question and a hint answer which will allow you to unlock your password in case you forget that password, or reset your password in case you have forgotten your password, etc. So here,
just wanted to little bit emphasize on this because we have many tickets on that we have raised because this is a live system, and there are many users being raised. They have forgot their hint answers. I would request that please remember your hint answers. We are trying to resolve this in next couple of days, that how we can fix these issues, because many users don't remember once they are migrating from V2 to V3. This hint answer they should be remembering. If you are not, request you to raise a ticket with us on service desk. there is a process that we are trying to build, that how can we allow these users to get in the system if they don't remember their hint questions and answers. Questions anyways will be there, but answers is something that should be remembered. I would request to raise a ticket with service desk for these kind of queries. Thank you. Sorry, Rajnish.
No problem. There is another section though where, if you, because there are lot of activities and new updates, etc., which will keep coming up on the MCA portal. So for a user to get that kind of alerts proactively from the system, there is a category where when you are doing a registration as a user, if you specify this as yes, all the updates related to these functionalities will be sent to you on a proactive basis. So once all these are done, so you click on the create my account and your account will be created on the system. But for the account to be fully created on the system, there is a OTP which gets sent on the user's mobile, which was given at the time of the registration, and the email ID of the user. And once those OTP verifications are done, then the user gets created on the system. Now, there are a lot of times where OTPs don't flow in or OTP gets delayed, etc. So no need to worry. There is a timer at the bottom of this, which here shows 0057. This timer is a timer where you can initiate a request for a new OTP in case you don't get the OTP on the first instance itself. So this is very important to remember that OTP at some instances can get delayed, or there is a choking at the mobile network, or there is a email issue, etc. So the user can at that instance wait for those 57 seconds. So the timer is a 1 minute timer over here, and once this becomes zero, you will get a resend OTP button over here, and you press that. The OTP request will get reinitiated, and the OTP will get sent on your mobile number. The next so this way one is able to now create themselves, and these are all the steps that one is required to undertake to create themselves as a business user under the professional user category. Now, when you are moving from one screen to the other screen to the so the system gives you that you have completed the user category, you have created the personal detail category, you have created the contact details. So whatever is mandatory, once that gets created, you get a tick mark on the top of that screen also. So which gives you a detail that you have filled all the details, and you are able, now you can move on to the next section, etc. What I'm going to explain now is another very, very vital and a critical step, where if a user is already now registered as a business user, they are required to associate their DSCs on the system. DSC is a digital signing certificate. So all of professionals would be aware that they have those USB based tokens. Now for those tokens to be recognized in the system, there is a utility that will be that is available for download from the portal itself, and there is a section under the LLP services where you have a associate DSC functionality. So when you press the associate DSC button, you will get a screen like this, and then automatically you will be allowed to download these utilities, the EM Signer and EM Bridge utilities. And once you do that, the USB which or the hard token that you insert on your USB gets recognized by the system, and one will be allowed to associate their DSC. Now, what is important is that these DSCs also have a PIN or a password identification number encoded in that. So, my suggestion to all the users would be to update and change their PIN, so that whenever this DSC, if it gets misplaced for any reason, etc., nobody can misuse their digital signing certificate tokens, etc. So here, once you do this, you get to download. You get these options over here. You press this and you download these utilities which are available. Double click those utilities, install those software on your system, your desktops or your laptops, and then the moment you insert the USB, the hard token on your USB, the system will recognize those. And you will get a screen like this where you will be asked to confirm the certificate. You confirm the certificate over here, and you type your password over here. And I would suggest that you change your password so that there cannot be any misuse of your digital signing certificates. So here we have given you some drop downs on what are the options available. So you choose the proxy key over here, and then go, and then the moment your digital certificate gets registered, you will get a option where the system will give you an acknowledgement that there has been a digital certificate registered with your DIN number and with your PAN number and your membership number in this case. Because you are a professional, so all the details will get populated from the system, and you will know that your digital certificate has been successfully associated in the system. So this is a associate DSC functionality, very important. So I would again urge all my professional friends over here to ask their clients, from various companies or LLPs to come on the system, register themselves as a business user under a director category or a designated partner category, and associate their DSC so that whenever they are filing, their digital signatures can be affixed on the system, or they can directly file and look at the various filings happening on the system themselves. I will now ask my colleague Vijaya to take over from here and give you a brief overview of what all is going to become operational on the new MCA 21 V3 system out of the company forms. So there are 9 forms which are going to be released in the first lot of forms. The reason why we are releasing functionalities or forms in a limited manner is just to make sure that all the system functions properly, and if there are any data mismatch issues or any issues, the complexity of the system does not create filings for the or filing issues for the users, etc. So Vijaya, if you could take over and run the next few slides uh, for all the professionals, then at the end of the sessions, I will stay on this call all with my colleagues, and we will take all the questions that the users have.
One question, Rajnish, if you can address here. Yes. I can see on the chat box that I have registered as a business user for LLP. Should I again register for company?
No. So for the system does not mandate. So once you are registered as a user, let's say as a professional or as a director, or a director of a company can also be a designated partner of a LLP. So once you are all registered on the system, you are not required to re-register for companies. So the system is a common system. There are common modules. The login process, registration process remains common for all the users. There are categories of users which I have not talked about. So there is a category called as company user, which is a master user for a company, or a LLP user, which are separate categories which have been created. But I don't want to confuse the users on this call. While the slides and the initial slides that I talked about gives a detailed overview of what those users are. And if anybody specifically has queries related to that, we will talk about that. But by and large, users who are going to be transacting on the system, they are required to register only one time on the system, and then they are free or they are set to transact on the MCA 21V3 system.
So that means if a professional has already registered on V3 LLP portal, he or she should not register again as a business user. This is what
That's right.
we are
That's right, sir. That's right, sir. That's right, sir.
And also, sir, it is important that if somebody has not even registered or with us, or they are still a user in V2, be it registered or a business user, they can go it there and do it now. They don't have to wait till 31st of August for any of the companies. There won't be any issues with that. You can go ahead since this is a live system. Please get your user IDs verified, or you want to get yourself registered in the new system, or you want to migrate moving from V2 to V3, you can do it now, and make sure that don't wait for 31st August for company filing. So there won't be any impact with your any of the logins for now. This is just for information that we should do your logins now, registered now. And if you are raising if you have any issues, please raise your tickets with our service desk. We'll address your concerns.
At this moment, Rajnish, I will request one more thing to you. Please clarify this point also. What will happen with respect to other company forms? They are on V2. So LLP plus these 9 forms would be available on V3 after 31st. What would happen to remaining company forms? That you should also clarify at this juncture. That how they will be filed.
Yeah. So I'll go back to the screen. So, we will here. So here, if you look at it, there is a bifurcation where we had created a login for LLP filing, and there was a login separately for company filing.
I think, Rajnish, your screen is not visible. Yeah.
Is it not visible? Sorry.
Not. Can you just share it again?
Okay. Is it visible now?
Yes, it is visible. You can go to that slide.
So yes, this is an important slide. So thank you, Jay sir. I'll also add something more. So one of the constant or a issue that majority of the users have also complained about and faced when they have been transacting on the V3 system is that some of them users are not able to register themselves as business users because there is a message coming that your PAN is already used for some other user category also, etc. So I would, because in many instances we have found that there were users who were already migrated from the V2 system. So what we have done in order to enable users who were already transacting on the V2 system, we are not seeking everybody to come and freshly register on the system. The whole process was meant to be simple, where somebody who was transacting on the V2 system could come into the V3 system and simply start filing by converting themselves into business users. Now, initially, because there was a lack of knowledge and there were some technical issues, many users have not, kind of upgraded their registered users profile to a business user profile, and they have now come and freshly registered on the V3 system. Now, I would urge users to not to do that. I would urge them to continue to use their V2 credentials and upgrade themselves from a registered user to a business user category. The purpose a registered user category where you were transacting on the V2 system, all your user history of the forms, etc., which you had filed earlier before this system went live would be visible to you under the activity history or history or the historical forms dashboards which are available to the user. Otherwise, what would happen is, because system does not have any correlation of the new user to the old user where you were filing under a registered user category, you will lose the propensity or the ability to see all the historical forms which were filed by you. So while there are certain inherent issues which were faced by the users, we by and large believe that we have solved all these issues now. So I would continue to ask my professional friends over here, people who have already still not registered on the system or who are still not transacting on the system, not to do a fresh registration. They should only do a user conversion from a registered user to a business user category, so that all the historical filings will remain visible on their dashboards, etc. So this is
So,
an important message.
so Rajneesh, let me, I think, explain and clarify again, because one user has again asked that whether LLP business user registration will work in migrating all the company forms to V3 system on 31st. Only 9 forms are getting transformed. If you happen to a registered user earlier, I believe for LLP forms, you would have converted yourself into a business user. If you have converted yourself into a business user on V3, you are already a business user, be it a company or be it a LLP. And V2's old credentials you are already using, which we had earlier, in fact, conveyed to you while at the time of LLP launch. Continue to do that. Do not register yourself afresh for company forms. Not required.
Yeah.
If you have already converted yourself into a business user, please do not register for these 9 forms, because system has recognized you. The second part, which the query has also come, which is also very, very important, and I request Rajneesh also to clarify this point. Okay, professional has converted himself or herself into a business user. Now, directors DSC would have to be associated for form filing. This is the question I think has been asked. Whether directors would also be required to convert themselves into a business user? The answer, I believe, is yes. The director who is going to sign the form has to register, then only his DSC can be associated, because it's one ID, one DSC. Isn't it, Rajneesh?
Yes, sir. So unlike the V2 system, where one could associate their DSC without logging into the system, in order to curb misuse of digital signing certificates of any user, in the system we have introduced a new process where all users are required to come and log in onto the system, and only after a user has positively registered on the system and logged into the system, they can associate their DSC on the system, sir. So what it means is a director for the first time usage on the system will have to come and and become a business user under the director or a designated partner category, which is, I have not talked about that, but this is we have backup slides on this. And once we share this slide deck with you, you can go through at your own leisure that there is a director usage. So similar to the professional user, which we had seen how the professional user registration happens, there is a director user registration also which happens on the system. And under that, we are not mandating or keeping PAN as mandatory, because in that case we already have the DIN number or DPIN number of the user. So system already knows the user as a director because there is a DIN number or a DPIN number available on the system MCA 21 V3 database. So there is a number which is available through director KYC, etc. So once that number is given here, all the details will get pre-populated. So you will then so the mobile number and email ID in this case, one will not be allowed to update, because these directors are already, their KYC has been done on the system and they are already their DIN number or DPIN number is already created in the system. So I am not going through these in
No,
details
one
because
intervention, Rajneesh, one intervention. So I am a professional.
yes,
I
sir.
have registered myself as a business user.
Yes, sir.
I want to file a form and affix a signature of a director.
Yes, sir.
I am a business user. I am a
Yes, sir.
chartered accountant or a company secretary. I am converted myself into a business user. Now I have to file a form where director's signature is also required. So whether I'll request directors also to become business user or only I will associate the DSC after post login of the director consent.
No.
That is
So
one another question which is
okay,
getting
okay,
asked. So
okay.
clarify this.
Okay. So I'll clarify. The DSC association of a director is a one-time activity. Now, if you are a professional who is transacting on behalf of a company or a LLP, once the system already has the DSC available in its database, a professional who is authorized to do filing on behalf of a company can use the digital signatures of a director. Now, what is the control that we have kept? When you associate the DSC, an alert will go to the director that somebody who is a professional is trying to associate the DSC of that user. So that alert will go to the directors, knowing, intimating them that the digital signatures of the director are being used on a specific form. Now, so just to elaborate, the DC association is a first time activity for a director. Now, director is not required to come and do filing of a form. A professional can do filing of a form. Let's say there is a form where a DSC of a director and both a professional is required to be affixed. Those DSCs can be affixed by the professional. But when the professional affixes the DSC of a director, an intimation or an alert will go to the director also, which will make them be aware that somebody is trying to affix the DSC of that director in a specific form, etc. Does it answer the question, sir?
I believe so. So when directors, the corollary question would be that directors are also required to get registered as a business user.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So
What?
director as a one-time exercise will be required to come on the system, register themselves as a business user, associate their DSC one time. After that, the professional can come on the system and do filing on behalf of this company,
So,
sir.
so this is very important that why directors have to become business user.
Why?
Because
Because we don't want the DSC of a director to be misused. There have been
no.
instances.
So right. So we are just clarifying that importance of a director to be registered as a business user. Why they are required? Only for association of their one-time association of DSC.
Yes. Yes.
Forms would be filed by professionals. Directors
Yes.
can also file forms, no issue. But forms would be filed by professionals. But one-time director has to associate DSC, and for that purpose, they have to register themselves as a business user. Isn't it? Isn't it?
One second, sir. I'll just mute this.
Yeah, Rohit, can you do that, please?
So I think
Okay. So, sir, I think we have elaborated this point, and if any specific questions are again coming related to this, we will take that at the end. I just wanted another thing to be run through, which I skipped, but so there is a section, and what is very important is that a user who was already transacting on V2, their user migration has happened on the V3 system. Now, there are options available where a registered user can, update themselves into a business user, and most of the fields are editable. this email ID here shows as an editable field. It's not an editable field. But since we also got a lot of complaints from users that, in many cases, they were finding that the name given by them was not matching up with the PAN database, etc. So we have created an additional fields where the first name and last name of the users as well as the date of birth can be edited by the users to match with the PAN database so that the profile update can happen seamlessly and the same user can now become a business user in the V3 system. So these are the screens. I will not go through them in details, but this is how the screens will appear like. And the users can migrate from a registered user on a V2 system to a V3 business user category. It could be a director, it could be a professional. So whatever, so there are options available here. Add user role. So those options will be will be seen by the user, and you can successfully migrate from a registered user to a business user in the V3 system. So with this, I will stop my.
Rajneesh, just 1 point. Once you migrate, I would request the users to migrate the same user ID which is actively being used in V2, because all your application history, which is or the files that you have formed till date, will be available to only to that login ID which you are actively being used. So there will be a lot of forms which you have filed in V2. So you may expect, where are my forms, where do I have filed it? So it should be done with the same ID which has been filed in V2. Same ID has to be migrated, and same ID will have the availability of all the applications or all the forms that you have filed in V2. So it's important to take, there are multiple IDs in V2 that many of the users we have seen. But the actively which you are using, please ensure that you are using the same ID and migrating with the same ID into the systems.
Yeah, so that this is a very, very important aspect, and that's why I thought it is imperative that we spend time on the profile update, because many users, have freshly come and registered as new business users, and for them, it becomes because there is no correlation established in the system, so they will not see any previous filing on the V2 system that they would have done. So this is something one needs to do, and that's why profile update is an important step where a user is required to update or upgrade themselves from a registered user to a business user and not create a fresh user on the V3 system. So Vijaya, I think we have spent enough time on this. We will take the questions on any concerns or any queries that users may have on this section at the end of the session, and I will allow or I will ask Vijaya to now take the users through the 9 forms that are being launched on the V3 system. Vijaya?
Thank you. Thank you, Rajneesh.
Would you take the control of the screen, Vijay?
Yes, okay. Rajneesh.
Okay, thank you.
I hope you all can see my screen.
Yes, Vijay.
Good morning, everyone. So we'll now move on to the company module set 1 forms. So basically, to begin with, basically, as GS sir and Rajneesh mentioned, so we are in V3 module, we are going live with phased manner. So as far as company module is concerned, we all know that we have around 100 plus e-forms which are there on MCA portal as of today. So what made us to pick these 9 forms, which we are calling it as set 1 forms, we will just talk about for a few minutes. So basically, there are a lot of discussions or a lot of brainstorming happened to pick the forms which needs to be there in my set 1. So there are multiple options or the criteria that we've actually considered. So the one of such criteria is basically we want to cover at least 2 rule chapters. So basically, when we say rule chapter, for example, we have included all charge forms which are part of my charge management module, which should cover all the forms which are there in my rule chapter. So like that, we have taken up deposits, which is covering both DPT3 and DPT4 form. And also we have picked up DIR3 KYC, e-form and web form. Basically, in case of DIR3 KYC and e-form, we have not picked all the forms which are part of my appointment and qualification of directors. So remaining forms mostly are linked with your incorporation or post-incorporation forms. So that is the reason why we have only taken up DIR3 KYC, e-form and web form as part of set 1 form. And this is one of the criteria. And the next criteria is basically we wanted to make sure that there is less dependency on other forms. So whatever the forms that we picked up for set 1. So when we said less dependency, so basically there are 4 forms. If you take a conversion form, there are a lot of procedural things that you have to go and file MGT 14 first, and then you have to file INC 28. There are detailed, there are a lot of dependencies on forms which we have not taken up as of now. So when we say less dependency, so wherever dependent SRNs or the dependent details are there in these set 1 forms, we have make sure that we will be migrating that data as a one-time activity, and we will be doing the incremental migration on a daily basis. And the next criteria is basically, so there should be a minimum independent master updates that are required in these forms. So basically, if you take charge management forms, so once your charge gets registered on MCA portal, so only your charge master would get updated after generating your charge certificates and all. There is no direct impact on your company master assets. So basically, we have wanted to make sure that since we are not moving any of the incorporation forms or the change services related forms in set 1 forms, we wanted to make sure that none of these forms would update your company master data. So I mean, either your name, SIN number or address or the capital, etc. So this is also one of the criteria that we have considered to pick this 9 forms. And the next point that we have considered is to coverage in terms of the volume of the percentage. So basically, these 9 forms contributes based on 2020 and 21 filings. These 9 forms contributes approximately 35% of your total filings on MCA portal as far as company module is concerned. And then the next point, there should be a less complexity for reverse data sync, because for certain period of time, we will be having most of the forms will be there in V2 system. These 9 forms will run in V3 system. There may be a necessity that we may have to do a reverse sync. So these forms will have less dependency on the reverse sync. So basically, if you take TIR3 KYC, only I have to reverse sync the data, DIN master data, or DIN master if you are filing a DI3 KYC in the form of e-form, or I just have to move your status. Suppose if you are filing a deactivated DIN ke liye, if you are filing web or e-form, I just have to move my status. So there should be a less complexity in terms of reverse data sync from V3 to V2 system. So this also one of the points that we have considered while identifying the set 1 forms. And the next point is there should not be any rule changes or the minimum rule changes that are required to be done for these set 1 forms, because rule changes requires a lot of analysis and a lot of discussions, and that will impact your layout or the declarations, attachments, everything. We do have some minor rule changes in these modules that we are going to discuss now, but these are very minimum in nature. And now, once all these points are relating to picking up these forms, the last point that we wanted to make sure is once we go live with this set 1 forms, stakeholders and all the stakeholders should have some comfort on the filing process. So basically, all the minimum issues or the important issues like SIN prefill issues or the company master prefill issues or the DIN master association. There are some important masters which are common across all the forms, not just in set 1 forms, but also in all the remaining sets. So to begin with, so basically, if you go live with the set 1 forms, that will give us comfort that all the generic issues are resolved at both at FO and front office level and back office level. So that will give us some confidence that all the basic issues or the common issues across all the forms are fixed and we are good to go. So, and also basically this set 1 forms, going live with the set 1 9 forms of set 1 will give a comfort that so we will be able to, whether migration is happening properly or not, and all the migrated data, you will be able to test it, because suppose if you've created a charge in V2 system and if you want to file a modification or satisfaction, obviously we will have to use the migrated data of charge master from V2. So that also will give a confidence that all the migrated data is working properly and everything is getting pre-filled properly in V3 system. And as I mentioned, these 9 forms are covering 35% of total filings. So it will give us the confidence that we are able to manage this performance in terms of performance and the large filings in V3 system. And also master data updates in terms of charge master or din master. So this will give us comfort that all my masters are getting properly updated and getting reverse sync to V2 system wherever it is applicable. We'll now quickly move on to the list of forms that are covered in set 1. So as I mentioned, all the forms of charge management and deposits rules chapter forms are covered. That is CAG 1, 4, 6, 8, 9, which are part of your charge module, and DPT 3 and DPT 4, which are part of your deposits module, and DIR 3 KYC and KYC web, which are part of your director appointment and qualification rule chapter. So these are all the 9 forms which are covered in set 1 forms. So now we'll start with each form and we will try to explain what is the change that is going to happen in terms of layout or in terms of validations or attachments when compared your. So basically we have been seeing these forms from past 7 years in V2 system. So what are all the changes that you get to see once we go live with these 9 forms on 31st August? So we'll begin with CHG1 form first, which is required to be filed whenever charge creation or modification is required to be done other than debentures. So companies are required to file this form. So to begin with, the processing type. So we all know that we have 3 different types of processings. That is STP, that is straight to processing, non-STP. So in that case, it goes form would go to the back office user for processing. And there's a third category called conditional STP. So which means the few scenarios would go to STP in terms of purpose or the logic that is there in the respective e-form, and few scenarios would go to non-STP for processing. So basically CHG1 is one such form, which is basically a conditional STP form, which means the few purposes. So for example, if the charge form is getting registered by affixing both the DSCs of company signatory and the charge holder, then this form would go to the would get processed under STP mode only. It will not go to the non-STP processing. And so non-STP scenario for CHG1 is if the form is only signed by charge holder without the DSC of company signatory, then this form goes to back office for processing. So there is no change in the processing type in when compared with V2. The same processing type which is there in current system will continue in V3 as well. And as we mentioned, there are no minimum or no rule changes happened. So there is no change happened in terms of the due date of this filing. So basically this form is required to be filed within 30 days of your creation or modification of charge. So now we will talk about the enhancements that has been proposed in V3 system in terms of this form layout. So as Rajneesh and JSR mentioned, so all the forms in V3 would be on web-based. So unlike in V2 system where you get to see only few forms like incorporation forms or name reservation or DIR3 KYC web, which are in the form of web-based. But in V3 system, all the forms would be on web-based filings. So basically your entire form is bifurcated into different sections and you will be able to file these forms online mode only. So so we will talk about the changes that are happened in CHG1 layout. So the first change, so I will simultaneously open the layout of both V1 and V2 so that I can explain you the changes. So the first change that we want to talk about is attachments. So basically, there are multiple attachments in all these 9 forms. So basically, few attachments have been removed, and in place of those attachments, we have added either we have added a separate section in the form itself, or we have added a relevant declarations in the layout. So this is basically, suppose if you take this second point, particulars of all charge holders attachments. So we have removed this attachment and we have captured all the relevant fields in the machine readable format in the layout itself. So basically the problem with attachments are basically all these attachments are basically unstructured format. Suppose if you attach a particulars of joint charge holders as an attachment in the form of JPEG mode or the PDF, system will not be able to read that data onto my database because of that reason. So every time I have to see whether who all are there as a joint charge holders, I have to manually open the form and see the attachment, and I will not be able to generate any data from that. So this is one of the constraint relating to attachments which are in unstructured format. So to the extent possible, so wherever it is feasible that we can convert these attachments into a mission readable format or in the form of declaration, we have accordingly removed the attachments and either included it within the form itself, or we have added a relevant declarations in the layout. So now for this particulars of all joint charge folders attachment, if you see the V2 layout, you can see this as an attachment here, attachment number 3, particulars of all joint charge folders. But if I show you the V3 layout, so there's a section called section 8 in the form layout. So here, whenever you are saying that your charge is actually involved, joint charge holders, and you want to give the details, so there's a separate section added within the form. So this list of charge holders section, you can provide all these details within the form itself. So what is the rank of, suppose if I have 10 charge holders, what is the rank of those 10 charge holders? What is the name of the charge holder? Particulars of the property? What is the maximum amount secured for each such charge holder? You can provide these details. And you can see an option here, import and download Excel. So suppose if you have a huge number of charge holders, suppose there are 100 charge holders where it will take a lot of time to punch in these numbers on the screen. Alternatively, you can update all these details in a structured format of Excel, and you can directly import that Excel onto this form itself. So this is also one of the enhanced functionality that we have given, that you can either give the details within the form itself, or you can directly upload the Excel onto the form if you have a huge number of joint charge holders. So this is one of the attachment enhancement that we have made, that we've removed the attachment and we have captured the details within the form itself. And then the next point, system-based email and automated reply in case of filing by charge holder. So as we mentioned, currently in both in V2 and V3, if the form is signed by charge holder without the DSC of company, then form will go to the back office user for processing. So what is actually happening in the current system of V2 is, once this form goes to the back office user, so which is basically only DSC of charge holder is available. So we have to intimate it to the company that so-and-so charge holder has filed a form on behalf of you. If you have any comments, or if you want to object this, or if you want to give any remarks, so you can provide that. So that is actually happening through email notification. So basically, once this form goes to the back office user, one notification is getting triggered to the company's email ID through the email ID of the concerned back office user. So then the stakeholders or the company has to provide their response through email only. So this is basically a manual process. Once you trigger the email, after that everything is happening through manual process. Now in V3 system, so we've completely automated this entire process of sending email notification and getting the response. How it actually happens is, whenever this form gets filed under non-STP mode, notification will get triggered to the company, but that notification will contain a link. So basically notification will have a link so that the company, so basically one more important point that we would like to highlight here is, we talked about different business users. So one such business user is company user or LLP user. So if you want to register as a company user, you have to provide your SIN number, and if it is a LLP, you have to provide your LLP number, which is basically which is different from other users, because in case of all other users, your email ID will become your user ID, but in case of company user, your SIN number or LLP will become your user ID. So in my example, so what actually happens is, system will automatically trigger one notification along with the link to provide their response through automated system. So basically, then once this notification gets triggered to the company email ID, only company user login, through company user login only, you have to provide your response. So once you log in, so once you click on that link, system will mandate you to log in through a company user login ID. The moment you log in through company user login ID, system will automatically pre-populate few of the details like your SRN number, company name, what is the charge holder name. So there are some prerequisite fields which gets auto pre-filled the moment you click on that link and log in. And then you will be given an option to provide your comments or the response in the form of text format, Suppose if you want to attach some details, so you will be giving an option to give these details in the form of attachment also. So both the options are available. So you can provide your comments directly on the screen that is available, or you can attach your response in the form of you can provide your document as in the form of attachment in the same screen. And the moment you give these details, you have to mandatorily click on submit button. This submit button will automatically move the comments or the attachments or the documents that you have given to the existing workflow which is pending with the back office user. So this entire process is automated. So this is one of the good enhancement that we've made in V3 system. So entire process of getting response whenever SR and your SR is marked for pending for user response will be automated. So and this enhancement is applicable for all three forms of charge, that is CHG 1, 9 and 4. So you will get to see this functionality in these three forms. And then the next enhancement that we have made is enabling signing of IRP, RP liquidator for companies which are under liquidation or under CIRP. So in the existing system, if you see, you will not get to see this designation anywhere in any of the forms, including the set one forms. So currently there is no functionality available for IRP, RP liquidator to sign the form. So going forward in V3, so whenever your company is under liquidation or under CIRP, and you have registered your details, your association is created as an IRP, RP or liquidator, so you will be able to sign the form. So just to highlight one point here is, currently we are enabling this filing, but association creation. So you may get a doubt. So currently, which form I have to file to create this association of IRP, RP liquidator? So we will be enabling a form called INC 28. So by filing through that filing, your association details, the way directed association is getting created through DAR 12 form or your incorporation form. So IRP, RP liquidator association gets created through INC 28 form, which will come in the next phase. So this is also one of the enhancements we have made across the charge forms. And then the next enhancement, which is relating to the layout. So we have added different new charge asset types. So we'll just show you what are all the charge asset types that we have in V2 system and what all the charge asset types we have in V3. So you can see this field number 7, wherein you can see, I think more than 10 charge asset types are there in V2 layout. But if I go to V3 layout, you will get to see almost close to 20 charge asset types. So you can select multiple charge asset types since it is a checkbox. So you can, suppose if you want to select more than one type of charge, so you can select these checkboxes. This is also one of the enhancements that we have made. The last enhancement, which is common across all the forms, you get to see a lot of changes in terms of pre-filling the data or repositioning of fields, or there are some changes in the declaration sections, etc. So to give you an example, pre-filling of the data. So currently in V2 system, if you want to file any form, so you have to mandatorily enter your SIN number. Whoever is filing, whether a registered user is filing or professional is filing, you have to mandatorily enter your 21-digit alphanumeric number, and only then your master data would get pre-filled. But now in V3 system, depending on the user type, so either your data will get pre-filled or you will be getting an option to select from the drop-down. For example, if you're trying to file a form by logging in through a user called company user login. So as I mentioned, in case of company user, your SIN number will be your user ID. So if you're already logging in with your SIN number, that same SIN number will auto-populated in your web form itself. There is no need to enter the SIN number again. So this is one functionality which you get to see in company user login. And suppose if you are trying to log in with a director role, wherein suppose let's say I have a DIN number, I have created my business user, and I'm currently associated with say 5 companies. So what actually happens is the moment I log in by providing my email ID, which is linked to my DIN number, system will automatically populate all these 5 SIN numbers as a drop-down value in the SIN field, so that you can just have to select from the drop-down value. You need not enter the SIN number manually. So you can select, suppose let's say I want to file a form CHG1 for against the first SIN number 1, then I can simply select from the drop-down that SIN number, and the moment you select that respective SIN, your master data like name, address, everything, email ID, everything gets pre-filled. So this is common across all the forms. And then one more enhancement in terms of declaration changes. So basically, as we all know that the CHG1 form, it has undergone a lot of changes as per Companies Amendment Act 2019. We have removed this concept of condonation for CHG1 and 9. And then, but if you see the declaration of V2 layout currently, you still get to see some points which are actually relating to condonation. So which are actually not relevant as per the changes that are happened in Companies Act 2019, Companies Amendment Act 2019. So all such declarations. So basically, we have removed all the condonation related points from the layout because these are not actually applicable now. So this is about the CHG1. So we will quickly move to the next form, that is CHG4, which is required to be filed for satisfaction of your charge. So in terms of processing type, there is no change in terms of processing. That is your form. If the form is signed by both company signatory and the charge holder, and you're trying to file this form within 300 days, then your form will get processed under STP mode. In two scenarios. That is scenario number one is a form is only signed by charge holder without the DSC of company signatory, or you're trying to file the form beyond 300 days with both the DSC of company and charge holder. Then in these two scenarios, the form will go to non-STP for processing. So the same process, whatever is there in V2 would remain same in V3 also. And also there is no change in the due date of filing. That is 30 days from the date of your satisfaction of the charge. And in terms of enhancements, so few enhancements are common across the charge forms, as I mentioned earlier. That is system-based email and automated reply and creation of signing of enabling signing of IRP, RP and all. And one attachment which we have removed in CHG4 is there's in one attachment called letter of the charge holder stating the amount that has been satisfied. So we have removed this attachment because this form itself is for satisfaction of the charge and everybody is digitally signing the form. So this is about CHG4. Most of the changes are common, whatever the changes that we discussed in CHG1. Sorry. We will move on to the next form, that is CHG6, which is required to be filed for notice of appointment or cessation of receiver or manager. So this form is actually hardly filed from on our MCA portal. But in terms of, so basically the processing type is non-STP in both V2 and V3 system. And due date is basically 30 days from your date of appointment or date of cessation, depending on the purpose that you're going to select in the form. So there is no change in terms of processing type of the purposes or the due date. And enhancements, so basically only one enhancement that we have made. So I'll just open the layout of CHG6 from both V2 and V3. So if you see this is the V2 layout. You get to see there are two attachments which are relating to list of specified properties, so which are currently getting filed as an attachment. We have removed these two attachments from the e-form and we have added the relevant data in the mission readable format only within the form layout itself. So I'll just show you the layout of V3 also. So if you see these two fields, 9A and 9B, which are not there in current V2E form, so we have added these two sections so that the data can be captured within the form itself in a structured format. So because if it is there in the attachment format, so it is hardly, it is not possible for me to, we need to analyze this data in a structured format. So that is the reason why we've removed these attachments and we've added the relevant fields within the form itself. So all of the changes are common. So this is only one of the enhancements that we have made in CHG6 form. So we will now move on to the next form, that is CHG8 form. This form is required to be filed with regional director. So in two scenarios, basically, whenever you're trying to file your satisfaction of the charge beyond 300 days, or you've already filed your CHG 1, 9 or 4 for creation, modification or satisfaction, but you want to rectify those details due to omission or misstatement. In these two scenarios, this CHG 8 form is required to be filed with regional director. So obviously this form will get processed under non-STP because it is an application to regional director, and once this form gets approved, you will get an order. So that is the reason why this form would get processed under non-STP mode in both V2 and V3 system. And now in terms of enhancements, this first enhancement is common across all the forms. And then you in CHG 8 form, you get to see a lot of attachments. So one such attachment is relating to foreign companies. So as we all know that all these charge forms can be filed by Indian companies or foreign companies which have their place of business in India. Suppose if foreign company which has place of business in India is trying to file the form has to be digitally signed by authorized representative of that foreign company. So we have one attachment whenever this form is getting filed by a foreign company, we are asking the user, the company to give a attachment called letter of authorization, which we have removed it now because anyway authorized representative is going to give this authorization, and anyway he's the one who is going to sign this form. So that is the reason we have removed this attachment called letter of authorization from the e-form. And also there are few more attachments like copy of resolution of the board, which we have removed it because we have added a relevant declaration in the layout itself. And also there is one attachment called balance sheet and annual return of the financial year, which is optional in nature. So it is there is no scenario wherein this will become a mandatory attachment. So it is always an optional attachment. So since anyway it is optional in V2 system, we have removed this attachment because stakeholder, if he wants to give this information, he can anyway go and provide give this attachment details in the optional attachment section. Since optional attachments, you can attach up to maximum of 5 optional attachments in the layout. So that is the reason why we have removed this specific attachment called balance sheet and annual return, because user will already have an option to give these details in under optional attachment section. And then one more scenario, one more enhancement we have added in CAG 8 is automatic notification to ROC of the form file to RD. Say for what is, so I will take up one scenario. Suppose let's say I have delayed my satisfaction of the charge beyond 300 days. Now what actually happens is in the current system, you go and file your CAG 4 because form filing will not be stopped. You can still, even if 300 days are already crossed, you can still go ahead and file CAG 8, and this goes to back office user, and back office user will not be able to approve the form unless you go and get a condemnation order for such delay. So in that case, what actually happens is the back office user will park this form, will put this form under a status called pending for INC 28, so that the company can go and file CAG 8 with regional director. And once the stakeholder gets the order through CAG 8, he will have to go and file INC 28, and then only after approval of this INC 28, then only your CAG 4 will be picked up for processing or registration. So this is the current process currently. And as part of this process, whenever you are filing an application to regional director for CAG 8 for condoning the delay, simultaneously companies are filing a form called GNL 2, so that this intimation that I'm waiting for this my order of CAG 8 condonation from regional director. So we are intimating these details through GNL2 form, which is actually now what actually happens is I will go and file CAG 8 first with regional director, and I will also go and file GNL2 intimating that I am waiting for this order from RD because this form is pending with the RD. Now there is a lot of manual interventions required, and ROC has to connect with RD if required manually. So to avoid all these manual interventions and this long process, what we have done is the moment you file the form with regional director, suppose for example your company is registered with the ROC Delhi state UT for example, and the moment you file your CAG, this goes to RD Noida for processing. So what actually happens is system will automatically trigger one notification to the jurisdictional ROC. In my example, system will automatically trigger one email to ROC Delhi mentioning that so and so company has filed CAG 8 for so and so purpose, and if you have any comments or if you want to give any inputs, you can provide those inputs, and jurisdictional ROC will be able to give these details in a separate. So we have created a separate queue called provide comments. So the moment this notification gets triggered, jurisdictional ROC will get a notification, and then this notification will also be placed in your queue called provide comments queue, so that the ROC user can provide the required comments to RD. So basically, you may ask me one question. So what actually happens during this phase? Will processing would stop at CAG RD level? The processing answer is no. Basically, processing will not get stopped at RD because obviously this form is an application to our regional director, and I cannot route this work item directly to the jurisdictional ROC. Only I need to get the comments. So what actually it is basically a parallel processing. So regional director, he can parallelly process the work item. Simultaneously, he can also get the comments from regional jurisdictional ROC. So whenever jurisdictional ROC provides his comments, all those comments would get attached to the existing workflow, so that RD, regional director or RD, can view the comments that are provided by regional director. Jurisdictional ROC. So this is also one of the big enhancements that we have made to ensure that there are no manual interventions and there is no long process that you go and file GNL2 with jurisdictional ROC and then again you go and file RD. So that all that is not required now. Everything will be system driven. And now one more important point enhancement that we have made in terms of payment of cost. So whenever CG8 gets filed with regional director, suppose if RD wants to condone the delay with the payment of penalty of 1,000 rupees, for example, in the existing system, what happens is he has to intimate this that you have to go and make this penalty payment before approval of the SRN. Then user has to get this communication from the RD, and then he has to go to a FO service called pay miscellaneous fee, and he has to select the penalty as an option. And your SRN, you have to punch in your SRN against which you want to make this payment, and that SRN has to be in pending status. There are a lot of checks and a lot of manual processes are involved in making this penalty payment. So to avoid all these manual interventions and this long process of making the payment and then intimating it to RD, so what we have done is, suppose let's say I have filed an application wherein and this goes to the regional director. So at the time of processing the form itself, the regional director will decide whether any payment of cost is involved in this particular SRN or not. Suppose if he thinks that there is a payment of cost involved, he will issue an order with the payment of cost functionality. So basically, whenever he's trying to approve the SRN and he has selected option as that payment of cost is involved in the work item, so what actually happens is your SRN will not get approved automatically. It will be shown as approved pending for payment of cost. And whenever you are changing your status of the SRN to approved pending of payment of cost, so the company or the stakeholder will get one notification with the link to make this payment. So basically, payment will be everything. So there is no need to generate the miscellaneous fee SRN, and there is no need to intimate it to ROC. So basically, once you get a notification, you will get so you can directly log into your system in the application history dashboard itself. Whenever your SRN is displayed as approved pending for payment of cost, so you will be having an option to link called make payment. So you have to click on that link directly, and all the details would get repopulated along with the payment of amount that is required to be paid, and you can directly make this online payment. So the moment you make the payment, your SRN status will get changed to approved, which was earlier getting displayed as approved and pending for payment of costs, which will get changed automatically without any manual intervention. This is also one of the big enhancement that we have made. This is also to make sure that there is no long process or there are no manual interventions in terms of payment of cost with respect to CAG8 form. So the next two enhancements are common across the forms, which we've already discussed. That is signing of IRP, RP liquidator for companies which are under liquidation or which are under CIRP. And the remaining changes are the common changes which we've talked about, like pre-fill, repositioning, and declaration changes, etc. So we will quickly move on to the next form, that is Ch9 form. So this is again a creation or modification form for debentures or rectification of particulars. So this form is basically will get processed under non-STP mode only, even both in V2 and V3 system. There is no concept of conditional STP. And enhancements proposed. So these enhancements are common enhancements only. We have removed this attachment called Order of Central Government for Rectification of Charge, because whenever you're trying to file for rectification, system will mandate the user to enter the SRN of CG8. So in that case, so there is no need to take this order as an attachment again in the form layout. So that is the reason why we have removed this attachment. So all other changes, whatever the changes that we discussed in CAG 1 or 4 would remain same here, like automated reply for whenever SRN is marked for pending for user response, or the new charges at types and other miscellaneous changes. These are common across the forms that we discussed in CAG 1, 4 and 9. So with this, we have completed complete charge module management rule chapter. So we will quickly move on to the next form, that is DIR3 KYC E form and DIR3 KYC web. So DR3 KYC e-form. So there is no change in the processing type. Both e-form and web form would get processed under STP mode only, both in V2 and V3 system. And there is no change in the rules. That is, your due date would remain same as 30th September of every year. And the fee would remain same as 5,000. If your DIN is already deactivated due to non-filing of KYC, then the fee of 5,000 is required to be paid for both e-form and web form. So there is no change in terms of due date and the processing type. And the layout also, as far as layouts are concerned, so we have not made any changes in the e-form except one change wherein we have added one new field called jurisdictional police station in address section. So, and this jurisdictional police station field you get to see in many forms, both in LLP and company, wherever you're providing address, be it as company address or be it as director's address or authorized representative address or KMP's address. So wherever we are capturing address, we are asking the user to enter the jurisdictional police station. So accordingly, we have made the same change in DR3 KYC e-form as well. So this is about the e-form. And we'll quickly go to the KYC web. So here also we have not made any changes. The form would get processed under STP only. There is no change in the due date. But only one point that we would like to highlight is, since we are talking about the user registration module, wherein we are saying in V3 all the forms have to be filed by using business user login. But there are some exceptions. One such exception is DIR3 KYC web, which means this DIR3 KYC web can be filed by a registered user also. The reason is basically this form does not require any DSC. So basically DSC is not required to be affixed if you are trying to file DI3 KYC in the form of web. So that is the reason why we have relaxed this condition that only business users can file this form. Business users also can file this form, but registered user also can file these forms. And one more enhancement in terms of the filing, ease of filing in terms of KYC or web is basically currently in V2 system, if you want to file a form with be it as web or e-forms, you have to manually enter the DIN number. But suppose, for example, you already have your business user login with the DIN and you're trying to log in with your email ID, which is linked with your DIN. So in that case, you need not enter the DIN number manually. Whatever the DIN that is linked with your email ID, that is user ID, will get automatically populated. If you are filing with director role, this form is conditional STP form. So if the form is getting filed for the second purpose, that is particulars of the deposits not to be termed as deposits as per Rule 21C, this gets processed under STP mode in V2 system. But in V3, apart from this form, we have included one more purpose, that is the last purpose, one-time return purpose, also under STP mode. So which means going forward in V3, if you are trying to file the form either with purpose number 2 or 4, your form will get processed under STP mode. Only in these two cases, either written off deposit or in combination with the written off deposits, only the form will go to back office user for processing. This is one of the enhancements that we have made in terms of processing type, which you can see here. And mandatorily attach the auditor certificate, so which we have removed it now. And I will show you the V3 layout also. And and also we have removed this attachment called details of liquid assets. So since we have added the relevant fields in the layout itself. Now I'll just show you the declaration that we have added for auditor in V3 layout. You can see here, there's a declaration called declaration by statutory auditor. So if the form is again filed with your purpose number 1 or 3, only then the section will get enabled. And then you have to, so statutory auditor has to mandatorily affix his DSC by providing his name, designation, membership number or the COP number. And there's no need to attach the auditor certificate in the form of attachment. So this is one of the enhancement that we have made. And we'll go to the next point. Then attachment of copy of instrument creating the charge has been removed and SRN of CAG 1 and 9 is provided. So if you see in V3 layout, there is one attachment called copy of instrument creating the charge. What we have done is we have removed this. So basically, obviously, we are asking the user to attach the copy of instrument which got created through CAG 1 or 9, right? So what we have done is we have removed this attachment and we have added the section to capture the details of CAG 1 or 4, CAG 1 or 9 within the form itself. So there is one field called, I'll show you the field. There's a section called section 14, particulars of the charge. Suppose if you're trying to file a form for deposits which are backed up with secured charges, then you have to give how many such number of charges are there, and based on that number of charges, the section to enter SRN of CHG 1 and 9 will get enabled in the form layout, and stakeholder has to mandatorily provide CHG 1 or 9 SRN. So what is the intent behind this change is basically whenever this form goes to back office user, if he knows the SRN through which this charge got created, there is no need to go through the attachment. He can directly access all the documents, including the form attachments from the MCA database itself. So there is no need to ask the user to attach the attachment again here, because it is basically a redundancy. So if I know the SRN, I can go and check all the forms which are all the documents which are linked to that SRN. So that is a reason behind this change. So which means in going forward, you will not get to see this attachment called copy of instrument to creating the charge. Instead, you will have this field called field number 14. And then there is whenever form is getting filed for purpose number 2, that is deposits which are not to be considered as deposits as per rule 21C. So in the current layout of DPT3, if you see, just open the relevant section. So there's a field called field number 15. You can see there are so many line items which are coming in this section, more than 50 line items which are coming from your rule. Only we are asking the user to enter the outstanding amount for each such line item in V2 system. But if you see the V3 layout, you can see these line items, there is no change because we have, as we mentioned, there are no rule changes are happening for DPT3 form. But we are taking the complete movement of this your deposit. So that is opening balance. You have to provide additional what are all the additions that are happened, and what are all the repayments, what are all any other adjustments that are happened, and what is your closing balance. Instead of one column which is there in V3, user is now required to provide total 6 values. And also, if I have a closing balance of say 10,000 rupees, you have to mandatorily provide the aging of that 10,000 rupees. So aging is again bifurcated into 3 sections, less than or equal to 1 year, or 1 to 3 years, or greater than 3 years. So you have to accordingly provide the aging also, which this entire section got redesigned, and instead of one field, you have to enter all these fields in V3 system. So the next change is relating to additional field we have added to capture SRN of GNL2 form where DPT1 has been filed. So currently, if you look at the V2 layout, there is no link between your DPT1 and DPT3 unless they provide the details in the form of attachment. Now, what we have done is, as of now, DPT1 form is getting filed as an attachment to GNL2. So what we are doing now is we have added one section called, I'll just show you the section also. You can see here there's a field number called field number 17. So here, whenever you are trying to file the form for purpose number 1 or 3, then you have to, and suppose if DPT1 is required to be filed as per the law, then you have to provide the details of that SRN of GNL2 through which you have reported this DPT1 filing. So that SRN you have to provide here, so that back office user, whenever he is processing the form, he can access the documents which are linked to that SRN if he wants to go through. So this is also one of the enhancement you get to see in V3 form, which is not there in V2. And the next enhancement that we have made is attachment for list of depositors. So if you see there's one mandatory attachment called list of depositors in both V1 and so both V2 and V3. So currently in V2 list of depositors, so as I mentioned, structured attachments in V2 system, so which means you will not be able to extract any data out of these attachments. Now, to ensure that this data, whatever the data that is getting that is coming to MCA is in a structured format, what we have done is in V3 layout, this list of depositors attachment, you have to mandatorily attach in the form of Excel format. And this Excel format is predefined template. So for complete details, you may refer the instruction kit. What would be my, what are all the validations? What is the template of this Excel format? Everything will be provided in your instruction kit. Going forward in V3, this attachment will always come in the form of Excel in a structured format, which is again one enhancement when compared with V2 layout. And all other miscellaneous changes are the common changes that we've already discussed. So we will quickly go to the DPT4 form. So DPT4 form is required to be filed for reporting deposits which were existing on the commencement of Companies Act 2013. This is also one of the form which is hardly filed form in MCA system. But still, there are some companies which are trying to file this form. So that is the reason why we've actually moved this form as is to V3 system. But only one enhancement when compared with V2 is basically in V2 system, this form is getting processed under non-STP, which is now made as STP in V3 system. So this is only one enhancement that we have made. All other changes are the common changes. So DPT4 form in V3 system, this will get processed immediately. The moment you make the payment, this will get approved, auto-approved through STP mode. Whereas in V2, it is non-STP form. So with this, we have completed all the changes that you are going to see when compared with V2 form layouts, because you've been using V2 form layouts from the past 7 years. So now suddenly you will get to see some attachment is missing, or suddenly you will get to see some new declaration or new fields. So that is the reason why we thought this session will help you to understand that yes, there are some changes that are going to happen, and you get to see some changes in terms of filing, the way you are going to file the form, or the way attachments are going to get attached. So that is it from my side. Rajneesh?
Rajneesh, you are on
Rajneesh, you are
mute.
on mute.
Yeah, so thank you, Vijay. I think the session has been a very elaborate session. Uh, uh, JS sir, if you are there, you won't want to add, or should we cover anything else, or we should open the floor now for question and answers?
I think it's better that we answer the questions, because I think that would clarify a number of queries.
Sure.
It's better to answer the queries now and take
Sure.
the
Okay, so
questions.
I will read it out, Rajneesh. We
Yeah,
did
yeah,
not get where your incorporation certificate has been sent. If still this is not answering your question, please drop in your SR number with us, or the SRN number in this chat itself. We will look into this and fix the issue for you.
So let me add to what Rohit just mentioned. It's very important to also understand that earlier LLPs were not getting PAN and TAN at the time of incorporation in V2. So that is one enhancement which has been done. Now, PAN and TAN is dependent on two things. One, you should give correct AO code for PAN and TAN, which we observed that number of times they were incorrect. Because those PAN and TAN only get pushed to CBDT and NSDL, and they in turn allot these PAN-TAN. We are not allotting PAN-TAN as such, there is a dependency. If there is a incorrect AO code, CBDT, NSDL will not allot those PAN-TAN, and therefore there could be a delay in certificate of incorporation. At the same time, we have seen in last 1 month when the system has got completely destabilized, I think certificate of incorporations are getting issued the same day. Rajneesh ji, if I am correct, now there is no pendency on PAN-TAN issue also. There is no lag as such, because real-time basis it is getting generated.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Since
sir.
this was a new enhancement, so initial days there was some lag, and there was some
Our honorable chief guest has arrived.
lack of understanding also.
To please maintain silence in the hall throughout his presence.
So that
and
could
please
be.
switch off your mobile phones.
So I think this is how we should tackle this issue. That please give correct AO code. You will get the PAN-TAN. Regarding conversion, also the issue has been resolved in a sense that the firm is converting, the PAN-TAN remains the same. So you should give the same PAN-TAN. You will be getting that certificate of incorporation also. It's a big enhancement where you need not go to CBDT for a separate kind of allotment of PAN time. So thank you very much. Yeah.
So the next question
can I do one
is-
addition? Just in the same point, please, sir.
Yeah,
Sir,
please do that.
what I've seen is CA Unmesh Narvekar. The problem of Warrior is that many times the AO codes are getting wrong, but the problem is not because of the system. Sometimes what happens, the professionals may not be exactly aware, or the person who is incorporating the company or LLP may not be aware about the exact AO code. My request will be, can the CBDT do the corrections at the back end if it is not correct? Because see, I may not be knowing exactly, maybe even some professionals also not knowing. So can that be authorized to CBDT to correct the AO code and do the PAN allotment? Because we have seen the certificates getting delayed for 2 to 3 months.
No,
And
now,
because of that,
no. Yeah.
Mhm,
This was earlier, this was the case, maybe. Now that is not the case. In 90-95% of the cases, the certificate of incorporations are getting generated the same day. See, the problem is that you are giving a EU code. Now we have put in a validation and the check sort of thing also. We are flagging a message that this might not be a correct EU code. Please provide correct EU code. CBDT will invalidate your AO code saying that no, push the correct AO code so that we can allot. Because this is you are giving a birth to a new child, maybe LLP or a company. So CBDT is also dependent on our firms to